Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're taking a look at probably the spiciest pair of Ultra League Pokemon that I have ever seen. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Tangy Platypus, so many thanks for the battle submission. This trainer is pairing up an Ultra League Enamorus with a level 50 perfect IV fully maxed out Morpeko. So this is one of the spiciest duos I've ever seen in the Open Ultra League, and this trainer is playing at a pretty decent elo as well. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at this very spicy duo, absolutely terrorizing meta teams in the Ultra League. Off to a great start in the first match, leading Enamorus into Zygarde. In comes a Feraligatr safe switch, but due to the one-turn swap, it gets outpaced. Fly is going to connect, and Feraligatr nearly gets neutrally one-shot. Enamorus' damage output is absolutely insane. In comes Drapion. Drapion's role on the team is to be a damage sponge, absorbing the Hydro Cannon, picking up the knockout with that Aqua Tail, and now having a little bit of residual energy to make it to a move when Zygarde re-enters the field of play. Zygarde is going to be hit with the crunch. We do not see a defense drop, trying to make it to an Aqua Tail, but it's not to be. The switch timers were slightly misaligned by staying in to throw a fly, so going to wait the clock. In the back is Malamar, and I bet this is not what Malamar was expecting to see. You can run from Morpeko, but you cannot hide. This is an Ultra League Morpeko firing off the Aura Wheel. That is massive damage onto the Malamar. Malamar, it's rapidly running out of HP. Morpeko firing off the Psychic Fangs. Psychic Fangs is going to be shielded up by the opponent, and now their defense has been debuffed as well. The no shield from Morpeko. This superpower will not be enough to KO. Morpeko able to get the farm down. Morpeko does get a Psychic Fangs as well, and that means with no other switches available for the opponent, they're going to be debuffed for the remainder of the battle. In comes Enamorus. Enamorus just needs to make it to the double fly. Zygarde is going to be walled here. They go for a Bulldoze, fishing for a debuff, but they are unsuccessful in that attempt. Enamorus is going to no shield. It's going to be the Outrage. That is a double resisted move. So unfortunately for the opponent, they're just in absolute shambles here against the Enamorus. There's just nothing they can throw. It's all double resisted. Back-to-back flies, pick up the knockout. Down goes Zygarde, and that's a good game. We move to the next match. What a terrible lead. A complete 180 leading into a Tentacruel. We're going to see the Drapion safe switch answered with Primeape. This is the Shadow Primeape. Shadow Primeape is running Cross Chop of all things. Very interesting. So they're choosing to run the Legacy move. Typically on Primeape, I mean, Rage Fist is always going to be a must, but I almost always see Close Combat or the occasional Ice Punch. So Cross Chop is a pretty big surprise. Nevertheless, Drapion, an absolute force to be reckoned with here, able to make it to yet another Aqua Tail, forcing both shields from that Primeape. In comes Enamorus. Enamorus more than happy to no shield. The opponent did already reveal Cross Chop, so there's not going to be an Ice Punch surprise. This is going to be the back-to-back Rage Fist fired off. We will see the shield from the Enamorus, looking to switch out into Morpeko. In the back, it's going to be a Shadow Machamp, and this is a bit scary. A Shadow Machamp, it's not the tankiest around, but its fast moves will add up quite a bit. Morpeko farming up, going to be firing off the Aura Wheel. This is neutral damage into Machamp. It will deliver a knockout. They get KO'd. Back in comes the Tentacruel, and now this is going to be a +1 boosted Dark Aura Wheel into the Tentacruel. Massive, massive damage once again. Opponent does unfortunately make a move before the +2 Psychic Fangs is reached. Acid Spray picks up the KO, and Enamorus just has to get to a fly, and that it definitely can do. So despite an absolutely awful lead, Tangy fights back and is able to get the win. Moving to the next match, Enamorus versus Lowkick's unbelievably good lead. Opponent is going to save switch into a Tentacruel, and that will immediately be answered with Morpeko. Morpeko going straight for the Electric Aura Wheel, looking to apply some serious pressure. That is going to connect, and that's just massive damage onto the opponent. Morpeko kind of has to shield everything in the Ultra League. It is very, very frail in the Great League, and it's even frailer in the Ultra League. Back in comes Lowkicks. The bad news for Morpeko, even though it's boosted, is of course the Dark Aura Wheel is going to be resisted, but that damage sure did not look resisted. That poor low kicks can't even farm down, forced to throw energy as Morpeko is able to KO 1 3/4 Pokemon just by itself. In comes the Drapion, expecting to switch out from the opponent, and the opponent does exactly that, and now we have a Drapion near, but since Tangy brought in his Drapion first, he is going to be up a Poison Sting. Opponent overfarms quite a bit of energy. They are going to be trading Aqua Tails furiously back and forth in this matchup. The opponent is going to be down a Poison Sting, but they are up a shield, and the opponent desperately needs their Drapion to try and sweep the endgame. But Aqua Tail is not going to KO from this range, so Tangy is going to no shield. Tangy will go for the Aqua Tail, opponent with a nice catch onto the low kicks. A full undercharge of the Aqua Tail, in comes an Amoris. An Amoris is going to get the farm down as Sucker Punches are not going to do a ton of damage. And there is just so much energy available on the Anamoris, and the Anamoris is still very healthy as well. The Fly is going to be shielded. Anamoris just needing to make it to a Fly, choosing to let this through. Aqua Tail does big damage, and it doesn't get there. Now Drapion has to make a move, but it does. Drapion, with some residual energy banked, makes the Aqua Tail, KOs the opponent, and secures the win. Hopping into the next match, leading an Amoris into Shadow Driftblim. This is a very bad lead, throwing one Fairy Wind and a safe switch into Drapion, and the opponent is going to send in Primeape. Last time there was a Primeape counter swap, it was the Shadow. This is the regular, and we immediately see the difference in survivability. The regular tanks that Aqua Tail very comfortably. We will see the shield here on the close combat. That's a massive call, as now the opponent's defense is very heavily reduced. Aqua Tail shielded up by the opponent, making it to another Aqua Tail. The speed of Shadow Drapion, able to force the final shield from the opponent. There's so much energy loaded on this Primeape. Drapion chooses to no shield. It is going to be the close combat, and Drapion will get KO'd. If there's a chance of winning this game, it's going to be with a Morpeko sweep. Morpeko hits the field of play, unfortunately does get the one-turn bring in there. Going to shield up as there's another close combat from the Primeape. Opponent is going to aggressively switch out, and their final Pokemon is revealed to be Bellibolt. Bellibolt is very bulky. Look at that electric aura wheel doing absolutely nothing. Bellibolt now gets to fire off a Parabolic Charge. Parabolic Charge, will it boost the defense? The answer is yes, and that is unfortunate, as now Morpeko's Dark Aura Wheel I don't think is going to be enough to KO. Dark Aura Wheel is going to connect. Bellibolt able to hang on. We're going to see a switch out and a catch onto Anamoris. Anamoris is going to take so much damage from that Parabolic Charge. In comes Shadow Driftblim, and the Astonish damage is just too much. In comes Morpeko. Morpeko is going to get KO'd by an Icy Wind. Morpeko did what it could, but that defense boost from the Parabolic Charge unfortunately thwarted its plans. Well, there's a chance for redemption in the next match. Anamoris into Driftblim, choosing to switch up the strategy, banking a lot more energy before sending in the Drapion. Drapion going to be debuffed by an Icy Wind from the Driftblim. Driftblim now going to switch out, and apparently it is National Primeape plus Driftblim Day, because that is all people are running right now. Going for the Aqua Tail, that's of course a debuffed Aqua Tail, so that's going to do absolutely nothing. Drapion more than happy since it's debuffed to just let itself get KO'd, but the opponent goes for a Rage Fist. The opponent expecting a shield, but the Drapion did not have a lot of value due to the fact that it was debuffed. And now Drapion going to try and get shields peeled away from the opponent, or potentially make a play for switch advantage. Firing off the Aqua Tail into the Primeape is going to be no shielded. Primeape does get KO'd, and now do they send in the Driftblim? They do. Driftblim looking for a farm down, but it cannot get there. This is a debuffed Crunch, but it's still going to inflict some serious damage. Able to grab a shield from the opponent, and now in comes Morpeko. In the back is Licky Licky, and this is going to be a very difficult game. Licky Licky going for the body slam. That does significant damage. Anamoris would love to get the back-to-back flies here. Not quite there yet. One Fairy Wind short, and it's able to survive the rollout. That is massive, as now this Anamoris can do so much damage to that Licky Licky. Licky Licky going to immediately be debuffed with the Psychic Fangs. If they want their energy, they're going to have to shield. They let it go. They are putting their hopes for this game on the back of Driftblim. But Driftblim cannot one-shot here. Icy Wind, it does a ton of damage, but it will not be enough to KO, and importantly, it will not put this Morpeko into farm down range. No baits here from Tangy. Opponent tries to call it, and that game will end in a win. We move to the next match, Anamoris versus Gastrodon. Unbelievably good lead. The Gastrodon is staying in. Oh no, do they not know about the Grass Knot? They throw on alignment there, so giving a free Fairy Wind to the Enamorus. Body Slam is going to connect. Enamorus very close to the back-to-back Grass Knots. Is the opponent really gonna no-shield here? And they do! That's a one-hit KO! They get completely obliterated, and now in comes Galarian Weezing. Weezing takes so much damage from the fly, and Enamorus is a wet napkin of a Pokemon, but the damage output is unreal. Able to KO basically 1 3/4 Pokemon by itself, and grab a shield advantage as well. In comes the Drapion. Drapion more than happy to absorb whatever the Weezing throws. It will be the play rough. In the back is Galarian Moltres. Galarian Moltres thought it was safe. This is the Ultra League. There's no way there's going to be a Morpeko. But guess what? Morpeko followed it from the Great League to destroy its hopes and dreams in the Ultra League. Aura Wheel is going to be shielded. Aura Wheel now going to be dark, but the Aura Wheel is going to be +1 attack boost. Opponent will go for another Ancient Power. Morpeko farming up to the back-to-back Aura Wheels. Actually farms past the back-to-back Aura Wheels, and now unleashing that charge attack. That's going to connect. It barely does not KO the Moltres, but getting the farm down. The Aura Wheel is back to electric, and this is going to be good night to the Weezing. Weezing, that is massive overkill, and that's a good game. Hopping into the next match, Giratina versus Enamorus. You definitely prefer to see Dragon Breath here. We're not going to find out as the opponent save switches into Licky Licky, and there is not a good response to Licky Licky on this team. A lot of Licky Lickys in the Ultra League are running Earthquake, which means that Drapion will not have the most comfortable matchup. In comes the Drapion, no shielding. Will it be the Earthquake? No, it's going to be a Body Slam. Is this actually a Shadow Ball Licky Licky? If that's the case, then honestly, Drapion's going to do well here. Drapion lands the crunch. Opponent has farmed up a decent amount of energy. No shield from the Drapion, and again, this Drapion in good luck, as it's not going to be the Earthquake. It looks like the opponent is running Shadow Ball. Body Slam after Body Slam are able to connect. Drapion not going to get the farm down, instead forced to fire off a last-second Aqua Tail. The Aqua Tail is no shielded. In comes the Giratina, and it's Dragon Breath. That's everything you could hope for if you have an Enamorus. In the back is going to be Shadow, Alolan Sandslash, and that will swiftly be answered with Morpeko. Morpeko, no shields, calling the bait, but that still does so much damage. That was a great call, but Morpeko cannot take a hit. Now it's the opponent's turn. Apparently neither trainer wanting to use a shield. Morpeko is going to make the +1 Psychic Fangs. Psychic Fangs is going to be shielded, and it took until there was almost no HP remaining on any Pokemon for a shield to finally be used. Ice Punch will pick up the KO. In comes Enamorus. Enamorus going to look for a farm down. Can't quite get there. Forced to commit a shield as an Ice Punch would be game over. Back in comes the Giratina. Giratina does have a little bit of residual energy, but not nearly as much as the Enamorus. Enamorus is going to need a lot of flies if it wants to win this game. It looks like with the Fairy Wind damage, maybe the next fly will be able to deliver a knockout. It's going to be a Dragon Claw from the Giratina. It's double resisted, but at this point, Enamorus is so low that it would be lethal. The fly will be shielded. There's another fly loaded and ready to go. Can this deliver the game-winning knockout? It does. Sandslash gets Fairy Winded down, and against all odds, Enamorus is able to get the sweep. We move to the next match leading into Cresselia, and this is a terrible lead for Enamorus. I like to play a banking a move and just sending in the Shadow Drapion, and Drapion is so good at consistently baiting out those Primates, as of course Primeape would be an absolute disaster for Morpeko to see. Primeape with a lot of loaded energy, it's always the guessing game. Will it be the close combat? Guess is wrong! It's the Rage Fist! Now the opponent's defense is still at full, but their attack is at +1. And that just makes this scenario even scarier. The no shield here, calling it, but it's the close combat. That is massive damage. Unfortunately, Enamorus will not get the farm down. +1 Rage Fist leaves a serious dent. Enamorus does have the back-to-back flies, but I didn't see a fast move come through from the Cresselia, which would mean it is a CMP die, which means the second fly will be lost as Tangy elects to save the final shield for Morpeko. In the back, it's going to be a regular for Alligator, and oh my goodness, can Morpeko pull this off? No baits here from Morpeko, straight for the Aura Wheel. Opponent is going to use the final shield, and now Morpeko has to hope that 5 +1 Thunder Shocks, and a +1 Dark Aura Wheel will be enough to deliver a KO here. This is going to be close. I don't know the damage values from an Ultra League Morpeko, and it KOs. Now Morpeko is +2. Can it outpace the Cresselia? The answer is yes, even over farming 1 extra. Going for the Aura Wheel KOs the Cresselia, and Morpeko putting the team on his back and securing the win. Hopping into the final match, leading into a Greninja. Greninja, despite the fact that Fairy Wind does hit for super effective damage, not a particularly fun lead just because Greninja's pacing is absolutely absurd. And it's even more absurd when you end up shielding a Night/Bait. That is so unfortunate. And Amorous fires off the fly. Greninja more than happy to commit a shield back. Opponent is going to switch out into Tentacruel, able to bank energy on the Enamorous and send in Morpeko. Morpeko going for the Aura Wheel. Aura Wheel is going to land, and that is just so much damage to the Tentacruel. Tentacruel returning fire with the Scald. The no shield, that does so much damage to Morpeko, and Tentacruel is actually going to get a farm down. Do you risk taking the Poison Jab on an Amorous to get an energy lead? The answer is yes. And Amorous now with so much energy, back in comes the Greninja. If they're bringing in the Greninja, hopefully that's a good sign that an Amorous will be able to sweep. An Amorous going for the fly. The opponent has to know a second fly is very, very close. And there it is. The opponent shielded, but they're not able to get their next move. Fly will KO. What's in the back? It's a Shadow Golurk. An Amorous banks the fly, the switch into the Drapion, and the opponent just can't get to enough moves to win this game. Crunch is reached, down goes the Golurk, and that is a good game. All in all, these were some of the most high-paced and exciting Ultra League battles I feel I've seen in quite some time, so many thanks to Tanky Platypus for sending in the footage. And Amorous is a Pokemon that I did try once before in the Ultra League, just because I was extremely tired of the Zygarde plus Gastrodon core, and that's one of the few Pokemon that can absolutely stun lock that core into having basically zero play. Now, pairing that up with the level 50 Morpeko, though, is where things got fun. Morpeko, I absolutely love it in the Open Great League. So to see someone who took the time to catch all those Morpekos from the Go Battle League, and I believe it was in Research Test at some point as well to power it all the way up. I mean, if life gives you a Hundo Morpeko, may as well max it out. So again, thanks to Tangy Platypus for sending these in, as these were some extremely fun battles. Now, it goes without saying, this is a team for fun, not a team that I'd recommend if you're looking to push elo. I feel like by mentioning it's one of the spiciest teams I've ever seen, that probably goes without saying, but I figured I'd mention it nevertheless. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.